Jesus Christ, this book was dull. For clarification, this is going to be a non-spoilery review because I don't care enough about this book to do a spoilery section. So you can watch the whole thing. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to talk about what I liked and didn't like about this book. So here's my review for Nevernight by KRISTOFF. In case you didn't know what this is about, I will briefly explain it to you. The main character is called Mia. She was separated from her family after her father died after trying to start a rebellion. Her mother and younger brother were captured, and Mia almost was as well, but she escaped, and then she met this old guy who started training her to be an assassin. She then later gets sent to a school for assassins, meets a bunch of people who are also trying to be assassins, and starts her training from there. That's the basic premise of the book, and that's pretty much all that happens in almost 500 pages. And the city that she's in, Godsgrave, is based on Venice. And I feel like that's probably all you need to really know about this book before going into it, apart from my feelings about it, because I would not recommend going into this book at all. So I guess I should probably talk about my feelings on the plot first. To be honest, the beginning was interesting. I got into it quite quickly after my 4th attempt, but then it started to really drag in the middle because nothing was happening. All of the training stuff has been done before. It reminded me a lot of Divergent in that the main character gets to this school or training program and we follow her day to day as she learns new things, although she's always really good at these new things, and there's not really much else keeping the plot going. There are a couple of plot twists in this book that you probably won't see coming. I certainly didn't, but that might have been because I was disconnected from the entire book. One of the plot twists was decent, but I didn't really care enough to be too bothered by it, and the second one definitely didn't have any impact on me at all. And briefly, my thoughts on the characters before I get into the real meaty stuff of what I didn't like about this book. I really liked Mia, the main character, and that was it. None of the other characters stood out to me at all. I feel like they all had generic personalities. There was the bitchy redhead who didn't like Mia from the start. There was the love interest who was cute and sweet and adorable, and also super hot, obviously. There were teachers who also didn't really have much personality. It was all just a bit Hogwarts, but without the charm. And those are pretty much all the feelings I have on the characters because I just didn't care. And that's because the writing style was atrocious. So my issue with this book, and my issue with this book had been for 3 attempts at reading, was that the writing style is too much. KRISTOFF has gone for this really flowery purple prose, and it comes across as way too try-hard and dense, but not good dense. It's not like high fantasy dense, it's just dense but bad. I do wonder, because he's so insistent on this book being adult fiction, which it is, this is definitely like new adult rather than young adult, but apparently publishers aren't making these distinctions anymore. Since he was writing this adult story, he had to try really hard to make it non-YA, whereas a YA book was really focused on the plot and the characters, and the writing would kind of just be secondary for the most part, unless you're writing like literary contemporary fiction, in which case everyone goes all out. But you know what I mean, like there's focus placed on the action and the relationships rather than flowery writing. But in this case, KRISTOFF tried really freaking hard to impress the reader with all of these words that he knew and all of these metaphors that he and the characters were coming out with, and the narrator was coming out with all of this bullshit, and I really did not like it. On top of the flowery purple prose, which I didn't like, there were footnotes on almost every single page, especially in the beginning. I have nothing nice to say about those. I don't think it was creative. I think it was a poor decision, and it's going to put people off. I had 2 main issues with footnotes. The first one being that they completely dragged me out of the story. We'd be reading about Mia and how she was killing someone, and then all of a sudden there'd be a footnote and it would be like, by the way, back in like the 8th century BC, except not BC because this is set in a fantasy world, so-and-so did this in this exact place, and it was just too much. And then we'd be expected to go straight back to the story where she was killing this guy and they were having an important conversation about why she was killing him, and I could not keep going with that because I just couldn't keep track of what was going on. And this was happening every single page, sometimes twice on one page. So I was starting the story and then going back down to the footnotes and then going back up to the page for 2 sentences before being dragged back down again, and it was awful. So in the end, I started ignoring them, and that is where my next problem lies. I feel like the footnotes were really lazy world building, because there was so much world building put in the footnotes but barely any put in the main text. And it felt like KRISTOFF didn't know how to incorporate the world building in with the main text, but he still felt like he should do a lot of it. Most of the footnotes were pointless because it was world building that could have come up in like an encyclopedia or something. A lot of them didn't add anything to the main story, and if they did, they should have been included in the main text, not as like an aside that you would need to remember later. Maybe if the world building had been included in the main text, I would have gotten a lot more out of this book, because I would have understood the world better and become more involved in the world. But instead, the main plot was in the main text, and there was dialogue and normal scenes happening, and then next to no world building was happening in the main text. So I missed out on all of that, and I think anyone who says you can just ignore the footnotes is kind of lying, because you can ignore them and finish the book, but you won't enjoy it anymore for ignoring them, because you're not going to get the same thing out of the book as the other readers would. So I'm really quite annoyed about these footnotes and about the writing style, because it was awful and too try hard, and KRISTOFF might have been trying something new, but it came across as lazy. I also wanted to mention that I've seen a few people talk about the problematic representation in this book. I don't really know anything about it myself, so you do need to do your own research here and not just like go with what I'm saying, because I don't know anything. But multiple people have mentioned that the Maori representation in this book is problematic, and the race of people in this book who are supposed to be based on or representing the Maori people have been described as savages and other such horrible things. So I wanted to mention that in case you weren't aware and were going to go into this book and then be upset by it. But again, please do your own research first, because I'm really not the right person to ask about this. So what did I like about this book? I liked that it was gruesome and violent. I liked Mia. I quite liked the ending, since it was very action-packed and gory. But that is about it. I wouldn't recommend this book. I won't be reading the sequel. And overall, I'm just disappointed, because this is one of the most hyped up books in the book community. And I don't know what you lot are talking about, because it's bad. Really, really bad. So I gave this one 2 stars, and I wouldn't encourage you to read it. Thanks for watching and for putting up with my rants. I think I mostly covered everything that I can without spoiling things. Let me know in the comments below whether you enjoyed Nevernight or not. Let me know if you ignored the footnotes or really liked the footnotes, because that is my main issue. And it seems as though some people did enjoy the book more by ignoring the footnotes. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments below. I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye.